Hey everyone, so today we're diving into something called GraphRAG. It's a really cool piece of tech that's changing how AI understands our data. You know that feeling when you ask your AI a question and the answer is fine, but it feels like it's missing the point? Like it's not seeing the deeper connections? Well, if that sounds familiar, you're going to want to stick around for this.
This quote right here just nails it. It's so simple, but it gets to the heart of what makes GraphRAG a game changer. See, our standard AI tools, they're amazing at finding things that are similar, but this is all about finding things that are related. And trust me, that one little shift makes all the difference in getting much, much smarter answers.
Okay, so to really get why this new approach is so powerful, we have to talk about the problem it's trying to solve first. Let's look at the limits of the standard stuff most of us are using right now.
And look, let's be totally clear, standard RAG is fantastic. I mean, it completely changed the game by letting our models pull in real-time information. At its core, it's really just asking a simple question. Hey, find me some text that looks and sounds a lot like my query. And for a ton of different tasks, that works great.
But here's the million-dollar question, right? What happens when the most important piece of the puzzle, the key to the best answer, isn't in the most similar document? What if it's hiding in the relationship between two things that seem totally disconnected? Well, that's exactly where similarity-based search hits a wall.
This breakdown just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got your traditional search. It's asking, what content is like this? But on the right, relationship search asks a totally different question. How is this piece of content connected to that other one? That move from what to how, that's the whole ballgame.
So if similarity search is missing a piece of the puzzle, what exactly is that piece? Well, it's the ability to connect the dots. And that is precisely where GraphRAG steps in. And the engine that powers all of this dot connecting, it's called a knowledge graph. So think about it this way. Instead of just having a big pile of documents, a knowledge graph builds a web. It actually understands that person A works for company X, and that company X started Project Z. It's not just storing facts, it's mapping the literal relationships between them. You've definitely seen this in the movies, right? The detective standing in front of that big corkboard. You've got photos, notes, little scraps of evidence, but the real breakthrough, the aha moment, comes from the red strings that connect everything together. That is a perfect analogy for what a knowledge graph does for your data. Now, what's really important to get here is that GraphRAG doesn't throw out similarity search. It makes it better. It uses this detective board to find answers based on those powerful and often hidden connections, adding a whole new dimension to how we find information.
Okay, so this all sounds really powerful, I know. But you're probably wondering, how complicated is this to actually implement? Well, the great news is that the whole process can be broken down into 3 pretty simple steps. So here's how it goes down. First, the system automatically builds that knowledge graph right from your documents. No manual mapping needed. Then, when you ask a question, it traverses the graph. It literally follows the connections, just like those strings on the corkboard. And finally, and this is the really clever part, it combines what it found on the graph with a normal similarity search. So you really truly get the best of both worlds. All right, so we get what it is, we get how it works, but the real question for anyone building stuff is, when do I actually use it? When do these relationships matter the most? This is where GraphRAG really shines. It's for those questions where the answer is scattered across a bunch of different documents. You know, a question like, who are all the people linked to this project? A simple similarity search would probably struggle with that, but a knowledge graph, it can trace all those connections no problem. It's perfect for these kinds of how is everything linked together questions. So, what's the big takeaway here? Where is all of this headed? Well, it really points to a future where our AI systems aren't just fancy search engines, but they can actually act like reasoning engines. If you remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this simple little formula. The future isn't about choosing graph search or vector search. The real magic happens when you combine them. That teamwork is what gives you a much richer, deeper, more contextual understanding of your data. But of course, this isn't some magic bullet that solves every problem. Like any powerful tool, the trick is knowing when to use it. You've got to really look at the kinds of questions you need your AI to answer. If those questions are all about relationships, about the hidden connections between things, then GraphRAG is probably the tool you're looking for. And that kind of brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. Your data, all of it,
is full of stories. It's not just a bunch of isolated facts. It's a whole web of connections just sitting there, waiting to be explored. So the real question you should be asking yourself is, with a tool like this, what hidden connections will you uncover?